why is it so hard for people to not get that this is all bullcrap? That this is just another pile of BS they're laying on top of all the other BS that's come out of this administration, fomented by conspiracies, fomented by a lot of ignorant people who are wholly incompetent in their government jobs to begin with, who have nothing better to do than to seize on storylines that have been disproven. Tell me, sir, what substantive charges could possibly come out of this?
Well, nothing, of course. But I disagree with one thing, Michael. I think people get the point that Donald Trump is madly pointing his fingers in 500 different directions to try to distract everybody from the Epstein investigation, where he's been completely hoist on his own petard. I mean, he was the one who mobilized everybody's attention to Epstein, and then everybody's saying, great, release the files, but suddenly he knows what's in the files because they had 1,000 FBI agents poring over them looking for his name, looking for photographs, looking for video, and guess what? He comes back and says, nothing to see here, guys. Forget about that whole Epstein thing. Let's talk about Joe Biden. Let's talk about Barack Obama. Let's go after some people about the Russian investigation again, which they have investigated and reinvestigated a dozen different times. And of course, there's nothing there because all of the intelligence agencies and a bipartisan Senate committee that Marco Rubio was involved in said, yes, Russia did interfere in the 2016 election. That's undisputed, their attempt to undermine and surveil and sabotage the DNC and Hillary Clinton's campaign. All of that is just undisputed. It's fact. What they were whining about was the claim, which I heard very few people make, which was that there was coordination between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump to do that. If you look at the Mueller report, Mueller found that there was all of this involvement by Russia to try to interfere in the campaign, and there was evidence that there were lots of contacts between Donald Trump and Russia, but no, there was not sufficient evidence for them to find that there was probable cause that it happened. Okay, so that's kind of a draw. Leave it alone. But instead, they want to go back and recycle all of those old allegations and remind everybody of the role that Russia has played in Donald Trump's political career.
I have to imagine that folks across this country who are turning on their television or have turned on the radio this week or maybe who follow Donald Trump on Truth Social and see him talking about Russia and President Obama, they're confused. This is like 10 years ago. It doesn't make sense, Congressman. So I guess
it doesn't make sense the way playing Macho Man at a rally doesn't make sense, which is you got your greatest hits, you go back to them, you play them one more time.
I mean, I guess so, but is it? Well, I don't think it's working. And you got Pam Bondi now with this grand jury from some trumped-up referral that Tulsi Gabbard just made up. I really don't think it's landing.
They're grabbing for straws.
Yes, they're grabbing for. I don't think it's landing, but I also believe that they are the government and that they have the full power of the Department of Justice behind them. And they can still do very nefarious things to undergird the lies that they are putting forward. So I'm concerned about that.
Well, and they're going to waste tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer money on a complete fool's errand. I mean, it's just an utterly ridiculous waste of our money. But they have no problem doing that. But if you look at the big context of what's happened here, it started when they threw 17 million people off of their Medicaid health care and tens of millions of people off of nutrition. Why? To cut the deficit? To cut the debt? No, they're increasing the debt by $4 trillion. So where's all the money going? It's going to all of their best friends and the biggest corporations and the richest people in America. So they were hoping to distract people with some other stuff. But in fact, the Republicans who are getting very nervous about all of these plutocratic policies that are clearly favoring the wealthiest people in the country, they settled on Epstein. They're like, look, what you didn't promise to throw all these people off of Medicaid, but you did promise to release the Epstein files, and you haven't done it. We want you to release them. And they painted themselves into a corner by unleashing this army of FBI agents to go through all the files. And they came back and said, yeah, Donald Trump is in these files. And then Trump said, we don't want anybody to see it. So now there's a huge division within the Republican Party. Everybody is demanding release of the Epstein files now. Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, liberals, because we do have a crisis of child sexual abuse in America. And we do have a crisis of the wealthy and the powerful not being beholden to the law. So, yeah, everybody wants to see those released. And now he's pointing fingers at Biden, at Obama. He wants to go back and relitigate all of the Russia stuff. If you want to talk about Russia, how about talking about the filthy, bloody imperial invasion of Ukraine and our democratic allies in Ukraine who are trying to defend themselves against Putin and his authoritarian government?
Well, he's also adding to his legal eagles. This was a piece of news that came this week in the Senate confirming Jeanine Pirro as a top federal prosecutor for D.C. Is there anyone Senate Republicans won't confirm that comes their way?
I just feel bad for D.C. right now.
No. Pirro is an election denier who stuck with Trump in claiming that he won an election that he lost to Joe Biden by 7 million votes, 306 to 232 in the Electoral College. She's a January 6th denier who follows every ludicrous conspiracy theory to the end of the road with Donald Trump. And like everybody else they've packed the Justice Department with, they show no loyalty to the Constitution, no loyalty to the Bill of Rights, no loyalty to the rule of law. They show loyalty to one guy, Donald Trump, and whatever fantasy he happens to be spinning that day. So it's a dangerous situation, but the Democrats are focused on trying to defend the right to vote and to defend democracy against the outrageous extreme gerrymandering that's taking place in Texas right now. And that's where we need to be focused. We've got to defend the mechanics of democracy against this attempt to create an Orban-style one-party state in America.
Yeah,
I mean, how's it going?
Yeah, it's not going that great, Congressman, at this point. And I'm glad you touched on that, because I think beneath the surface of everything that's happening right now is the truth of Texas, is the truth of other states, red states that are right now plotting and planning to figure out how they can amass votes. The strategy is not just Texas, sir. It is other states in combination that gets you the number, a bigger number in the end. It's not just about, oh, we want a 5-seat majority or a 6-seat majority. We can get to 15 or 20 seats before we even roll into 2026, right? If we can get 4, 5, 6 other states on board.
And they're kicking people off the voter rolls in places like
It makes
Georgia.
it a lot easier when you clean the rolls. Clean the rolls. So.
Yes. So let's see. Our state legislative colleagues from Texas are fighting hard to deny a quorum so they can't get away with this complete ripoff against political democracy in Texas. Our House colleagues, like Greg Casar, who's the head of the Progressive Caucus, and Lloyd Doggett, and Henry Cuellar, and Jasmine Crockett, are all fighting hard to try to defend the redistricting we had before, which itself was a gerrymander, but they basically want to impose a Hunger Games like scenario every 2 years now, so they can keep moving pieces around on the board until they can gerrymander us into oblivion. So we're taking our stand right now in Texas. And you're right, Michael, if they get away with it in Texas, they're going to Ohio, they're going to Florida, but Democrats are going to fight back where we can fight back. And Governor Newsom has said in California, they will fight to get those 5 seats back there. And if the Republicans really have no problem just sacrificing 5 of their Republican colleagues who have seats in California right now for ones in Texas, well, that's a decision they're going to make. That tells you exactly what they feel about people in California. But we're fighting for people all over the country here. You know, in our For the People Act, we wanted to get rid of the sordid business of gerrymandering and say independent independent redistricting commissions in all 50 states and take the politicians out of it. Have only independent, nonpartisan people over the commissions. The Republicans have categorically rejected that and instead are trying to crack down even further by making gerrymandering the law of the land every single term that we've got every 2 years. And that's what we've got to resist. But if we got to fight fire with fire, we are going to do it, and we are going to continue to organize and mobilize against all of the voter suppression tactics that they're engaged in. And this is one of them. Gerrymandering is a form of voter suppression and basically draining the meaning out of elections.
You know, it is not lost on me that as we have this conversation, today is I believe, the 60th anniversary of the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, an act that opened the door to, frankly, our true democracy, and an act that people like former Congressman, may he rest in peace, John Lewis, fought for with his blood, sweat, and tears to ensure there was fairness and equity in this country at the ballot box. And I have to tell you, these are difficult days to be having this very conversation in that context, Congressman Raskin. But I am hopeful because people are fighting.
I was just going to say that they are rolling back a district that came into being because of the Voting Rights Act in Texas, a majority Hispanic district, which Greg Casar represents, which they've completely dismembered and dismantled. And so they think that they can get away with it because they control the Supreme Court. I mean, that really is the end of the Voting Rights Act if they're going to be able to decapitate Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act in that way. The Voting Rights Act is one of the things that we've got to defend ourselves against what they're doing around the country. But we do need a massive popular mobilization against this. I'm glad that Kevin Kiley, Congressman Kiley, who's a Republican from California, said he's introducing legislation to forbid mid-decade redistrictings like the one they want to do in Texas. So the California Republicans are upset about this because they understand that they're the next ones on the chopping block. Yep. And, two can play this game if that's what they want to do.